Welcome, family. Welcome to He Say, She Say Family Coach Live, presented to you by yours truly, Shar, founder of Law for Love, the most special place in the legal system in Atlanta. I am a little late this evening, and I appreciate your long suffering and your kindness. Today has been Marathon Meeting Monday, and I am just overwhelmed with gratitude that um, this day has been really, really full of connection and blessing and productivity. So I welcome you in tonight, and I am preparing my slides to share with you because I have more questions than answers tonight. I'm going to be asking you some questions, and I'm going to ask you to be honest in your responses. And even if you don't have a live response tonight, my hope and my prayer for you is that you will take these questions to heart and carefully consider them and where you might be in terms of the questions. So, welcome in. Hey, Shalom, Lashonda, Shalom, Batea. Welcome in. Now, I am going to share my screen. I'm about to ask y'all some questions. I'm going to ask you to be really honest, and you don't have to share here in the comments. But this sequence of questions is designed to help with power struggles in our not just marriage, but in any relationship, really. I think this one does apply to any relationship, but specifically to marriage. So I'm just trying to figure out how to share my screen here. All right, what screen do I want to share? I want to share the, okay, this one. Who should get the last word? So tonight, and for this conversation, we are just exploring some of our individual motivations when it comes to the way we show up in conflict. Again, I'm not in advisory mode tonight. I'm in provocation mode tonight. I am challenging introspection and honesty. Introspection is powerful and it is life changing to the extent that we tell ourselves the truth. It will never cease to amaze me that people they go into situations where they want help, they want to improve their relationship, but they're not being honest with the person who's facilitating that conversation. And I don't care if you're dealing with a therapist, a counselor, a pastor, a next door neighbor. If you're not being honest or you're not showing up honestly, that person is really going to have very little ability to help you find a path of lasting change. So again, tonight is not advisory. Tonight is introspection challenge. I have embraced my role as a professional aggravator to confront you with opportunities to tell you the truth. So let's just dive right in. So one of the first things that we should be asking ourselves when dealing with the question of who gets the last word. One of the motivations is personal experience. Can you recall a time when you felt compelled to have the last word in an argument? What was going through your mind at that moment? There might be a situation where you can't help but insist on having the last word. And it's kind of interesting if you just bring up this conversation with most people, like, hey, how do you feel about having the last word in a discussion or argument or disagreement with your husband or with your wife, it really it begins to open a lot of doors of insight into how strongly we as human beings can really hold on to the need, this compelling reason why I have to be the last one to say something in this moment. And just kind of picturing myself flying out of the room, slam the door behind me to make sure that my word was the last one that got dropped. So, what is going through your mind when you feel like it's the last word or bust? Another motivation behind the question, who should have the last word? Or hold on. I'm definitely trying to refrain from having a last word lately. It takes a lot of effort, right? It takes a lot of effort. And you know what? I'm gonna bless you with my 2 cents on this topic at the end. But these are going to be, again, about just confronting and exposing some of the motivations or some of the things that might drive you to the point where you just, why does it hurt? Why does it feel painful if you're not the one to have the last word? So this one here, emotional need is another motivation behind this conversation about who should have the last word. So do you think the desire to have the last word is connected to any specific emotions, such as feeling disrespected or needing validation? And so we all have baggage. We all have packages of emotion that just comes from lifing, the way we grew up, the way that we showed up or didn't show up in our childhood, teenage years, young adulthood. And one of the motivations that underlies this struggle for the last word could be wanting to demand respect in that moment or feeling validated. So that's another question, a little food for thought while you're considering the power struggle over who gets the last word. Another one here is your belief system about conflict resolution. So, how do you believe having the last word impacts the resolution of the argument? Do you feel it provides closure? Or does you having the last word make things worse? Right? I think that's a great question. I got text messages coming in, just making sure it's not related to this live, because y'all know y'all help supervise. Y'all help to supervise me. Y'all do an amazing job supervising me. I appreciate it. Love y'all so much. So, does you having the last word bring closure, or is it adding fuel to the fire of the conflict? Let's see. We had some comments in here. I'm gonna grab real quick because you want to. Yes, you want to win. Yes, LaShonda, you want to win. So, hey, this is a great insight for those of y'all who are wired to be competitive. Some people are competitive, and winning is everything. I am thankful that that cup has passed over me. I am so not competitive. It's not even funny. Like, I really, really just don't. You're in your lane, go in your speed to do what you need to do. I'm cheering you on for my lane. Do you? But some people are really competitive. And it's like they are driven and motivated to win. And that's a real thing that you should be aware of yourself and in your spouse if there was a winning motivation. You are triumphant. That's the emotional satisfaction that you get when you get the last word. You have triumphed. Shonda, you are being so terrible right now. I love it. Hey, look, I feel like being honest with like what's really going on in your child brain, and we're going to talk about the child brain at some point in time. I I see the little kid show up a lot in my work, and we all have a little kid. And so if you're really honest about the little kid motivations that show up, it really does bring a lot of perspective and healing for you to be so honest with yourself. LaShonda is triumphant. She got that last word. You can't beat me. Power dynamics. So another motivation or thought process that's happening in the background of the fight for the last word. Do you think the need to have the last word is related to a sense of control or power in the conversation? Why or why not? And so, just speaking from the female perspective, I could definitely see where sometimes we can be made to feel that we are at a disadvantage when it comes to his leadership, his headship, him, being the God-given authority in the family. That could cause us to feel disempowered. And so, I would just go ahead and kind of give voice there. But again, I'm going to share my final thoughts at the very end of my aggravating you to ponder these questions and answer them honestly. What about your self-perception? How does having the last word affect your self-esteem or your self-image? Do you feel more confident or justified after you get the last word? So again, is there a need based on your value or your perceived value that you're actually fighting for when you're fighting for the last word? And here, do you believe your communication style? So this one is about the way that people communicate. Your communication style. Is your style influencing your desire to have the last word? How so? And communication style, I think, is closely related. It might be the next one here. No, not this one yet, but interpersonal relationships. How do your relationships with others influence your need to have the last word? Do you find this desire varies depending on who you're arguing with? So this is a very, very interesting insight to explore because some people, hey, blessings, Sister Stacy, some people, they might be more laid back and reserved or quiet in one type of setting and then kind of show up more dominant or aggressive in another type of setting. So this probes into your interpersonal dynamics. Are you always showing up the same when there's a disagreement? Are you more agreeable in certain settings and more argumentative or aggressive or demanding in others? Or are you always showing up the same way? Remember, your answers have to tell you the truth. All right, the culture is the one that I feel is closely related to communication style. So, do you think cultural background plays a role in the importance of having the last word? how might your culture or your cultural norms influence this behavior? So this is why I might have like a little conversation about uh my cultural experience. Okay, so I come from a family that's loud. My family is a loud family. In fact, like when we get together as a family, the louder it gets, the more fun we're actually having. If it's quiet, we're not having fun. When we're loud, we're having a blast. And I noticed that also with other cultures, and I'll say one culture in particular where the style of communicating, well, two cultures actually, being from South Florida, Cuban culture and Haitian culture in a passionate conversation can actually sound like argument when they're just speaking regular. Like I have been in settings where there's this passionate conversation taking place between Cubans and it sounds like they're fighting, but they're not fighting. They're just passionate. And I always connect it with that aspect of Cuban culture because I'm from a loud family. We're loud. And just because we're loud doesn't mean that we're fighting. We're just being loud. The same thing with Haitians, the way that Haitians emote and communicate as a culture, it can sound aggressive to someone who's not accustomed to that culture. And it's just, to me, it's passion. And it reminds me of my big fat Greek wedding, right? The Greek family was loud and they just got down loud. And the husband's family, they called them dry toast. They were boring, they were quiet, they're like library family. And I'm not saying that one is right and the other one is wrong, but cultural competence or thinking about your culture compared to, especially in a relationship, husband and wife, if you are married to someone who does not come from a loud family and you come from a loud family, you can easily like trigger conflict or bring in that last word dynamic if you are culturally different in your upbringing. And even within your, the same ethnic group, not all Black folks come from loud families. Right? I am married to a man who does not come from a loud family, who, first time coming to our family events, he was looking at me like, oh my gosh, y'all are so loud. But cultural competence, communication style sometimes may appear aggressive and off-putting, and just being aware, it just helps you have a lens and a sensitivity to someone who doesn't necessarily have the same communication style or culture, especially if you're talking about passionate cultures versus more subdued or what some might call more civil culture. I don't think that not being loud is more civil, but some people might call it that. I'm not offended by it, but I'm loud. Conflict avoidance. I'm just going to go ahead and like throw out a super big flag right here when it comes to a very, very common issue that we see in marriage breakdown that ultimately does lead to divorce. And it's really, really interesting because there are people who want to duke it out. Let's duke it out. Let's solve it. Let's resolve it. Let's talk about it. And oftentimes those people marry someone who wants to avoid that type of engagement. Like they will go into hiding. They will go for a shopping trip. They will shut off their phone. They will do everything they can to avoid. They will not even tell you what's really bothering them because of this motivation of conflict avoidance. So the question to ask yourself, to evaluate or to think about or to ponder or consider how you're showing up in your marriage. Do you ever feel that letting someone else have the last word is a form of just avoiding a conflict? And how does that make you feel? And it's so interesting, y'all. There are two things that I notice in a lot of marriages. You have the person who's like the confrontational type marries the conflict avoider. I see that pattern a lot. And I also see the pattern of a person, even more than the conflict one, but I see a lot where someone who's very, very responsible with their money and money management marries someone who's the exact opposite and just like really poor with money management and spending. It's fascinating. Perceived outcomes. How do you perceive the outcome of an argument when you do not have the last word? Do you feel that the argument is unresolved if you didn't have the last word? Yep, I had my husband have the last word because I just want the discussion to end. You can have it. You can have it. You can have it. Can I go to bed now? Can I go back to doing what I was doing? Can I look? You want to get back to your book, don't you? Can I finish reading my book? What were you responding to, Sister LaShonda? Was it of like just let's get it over with, or was this marrying your polar opposite in conflict or in money management? I see polar opposites all the time. And one of the things that we help couples do when they show up as polar opposites, because in your relationship, it's very, very natural to feel like the way that you do things or the way that you see things, like the other person should get it. Like, this is how I am. You should know how I am. Like, this is just the right way. So when you have somebody see it, you need the last word. Hey, and it's a situation, that last word. That last word is a real powerful conversation and a powerful position. But why? Why do we need the last word? Why are we willing to burn the whole bridge to get it? I don't see it as being unresolved. I know eventually actions and current events are going to prove me right. You just gotta wait them out. Just be patient. Also, yes, let me get back to my book. Hilarious. Yes, I do not want to waste any of my reading time with this argument. Okay. Yeah, the money management thing, LaShonda, it's almost comical. Like, I don't say this to minimize the pain that people are in when they have this mismatch in their relationship. But when I'm helping a family navigate this kind of difference, I bring it to them in a light where they can see the comedy of it, because the comedy really comes from like this adventure that you get to go on together in your relationship and overcome this difference. And this one is almost 100% across the board, financial management mismatches. In terms of the work that I do where people are in conflict, and I help them to see their differences without feeling threatened by it. Hey, welcome. Without feeling threatened by their differences, without feeling belittled because of their differences, because it's easy to say, oh, this person's right and this person's wrong. But when you are just validated or valued for who you are and what you bring into the relationship and how you show up, maybe you might be showing up in a way that's not necessarily enhancing the relationship in a positive way in this one area, but you more than make up for it in another area. And sometimes we just got to be willing to own where we struggle and celebrate where we rock. And I think that that's important. A lot of times we lose sight of those opportunities when we are laser focused on our differences. So I told you that I would tell you what my insight was, or what my little 2 cents about who should get the last word at the very end. I have yet to hear men articulate why they take the woman's battle for the last word so harsh, like why they feel so disrespected. I've never had a man speak directly to what they feel about that. You were just thinking about the money mismanagement on your on your way home from work today. Really? And the scripture that came to mind, a foolish stop. You know what? LaShonda is on one tonight. You are cracking me up tonight, sis. You're cracking me up. So I have I have not had a man, and I invite any man who is watching this replay to comment and share if you are able to articulate what goes through your mind as a man when your wife insists on having the last word and this is her pattern. Every argument ends with her having to have the last word. I am asking you, as one of your sisters, to articulate for me what happens in your heart and in your mind when your woman does this. Because what I've observed, although men, I haven't had a man articulate it to me. I observed that men feel that they have the right to the last word, and that for their wives to allow them to have the last word is an act of respect and submission to their authority. That is what my observation is. And I would say, in fact, no longer fighting, because I used to scrap to have the last word in my relationship. And and not only am I like conflict avoidant, where I really don't want to have I don't want to have the disagreement, but I want to be I'm the runner, I'm the running type. So I'll try to find my way out of the nearest door. And as I'm going out the door to run away from the fight, I make sure I say the last word before I leave, because I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to engage in this conflict. And when I recognized that about myself and made a conscious effort to no longer fight and scrap and run as I'm throwing the last word, it has made a remarkable difference in the way I show up in our conflict and the way that my husband responds to my point of view. I feel that by allowing him to have the last word, he is more contemplative about the things I said. So, in other words, when I used to insist on having the last word, I found that he didn't want to hear anything else that I said before. When I stopped fighting to have the last word, he spent more time in thought considering everything I said before he had the last word. So one of the things that this kind of reminds me of, brother said, women don't realize how much power we have. The type of power that we fight for it's useless in light of the amount of power we already have. So when we use the power we have in a way that influences our men rather than demanding or threatening our men, we get more as a result of our posture of submission and our posture of, what the current conversation out here is about, feminine energy. Again, it's not feminine energy, it's honoring the authority of our men. If he has the last word, he will more likely be influenced. And I believe this is what Paul was saying when he said that wives should influence our husbands through quietness of spirit. I don't think that he was saying that we don't have an opinion and that we shouldn't talk or that we cannot disagree with our husbands. But when brother is the one that has the last word, everything that you said before that has more of an opportunity to play in his mind for him to think on, reflect on, and consider whether or not he was wrong after he had the last word. So I hope that that blesses you and encourages you. And if you are in the game for triumph and victory, if you got to win, then I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you for the next 7 days when you have a discussion and that discussion comes to a place of disagreement between you and your spouse. If you are a wife, my challenge to you is to let him have the last word. It might freak him out and spook him if he's used to you always insisting on having the last word. He might be concerned that you're not feeling well. But if you are a wife who has consistently fought for the last word, my challenge to you, see how he shows up after your conversation by letting him have the last word. I agree with that. Your actions speak louder than your words. Influence him through the way you live your life. Yes and amen. The brothers are not hearing what we're saying necessarily more than they're watching how we're living. In some cases, I've seen men that I would consider real men acquiesce to their wives to avoid the nagging yes situation. Yes. Not to say that all women nag their spouses like that. Yeah, well, we have a culture that has empowered women to the point where we are normalizing disrespect of men. And so in these intimate spaces, we want to make sure that culturally we're showing up with respect. And if respect for your man in his mind's eye looks like, can I have the last word? Can you not fight me for the last word? Then let him have it. And so acquiescing, and being a real man, how we even define our men, how we even see them in their manhood. A lot of times, they're in a real tight spot because it's like more and more women get to tell them what a real man is and isn't. And then at the same time, disrespect our man behind closed doors or sometimes in public, just like in front of everybody. Like our men are in a tough spot. And this last word, for some reason, does mean a lot to them. And we as women usually have the upper hand verbally with our ability to kind of fire off between multiple concepts. Going back to the conversation that we had about the spaghetti, the woman's brain, and all of the connections versus the box, the way a man thinks, he's not necessarily going all over the place with his woman because he's still in the box sorting out his box. So a lot of times we overwhelm them simply by being all over the place, and they need that time to think through what we're saying. So let's give them that space. It's not any like shade on that. It has nothing to do with their intelligence or their ability. It's just the way that they're wired to think things through one issue at a time. So our being respectful of that, letting them have the last word and kind of like chewing on it and coming back. Now, if he's prideful, he might not ever admit that she was right. He might sit up there and act like, it's all good and he had the last word and that resolves it. And you'll have to find a strategy for, re-engaging him in that conversation. If it's something that, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's over a 5, that, that's my life coach's guidance. She's like, if you have an issue from a scale of 1 to 10, anything, 1 being not that important, 10 being of the utmost important, anything that's a 5 or greater has to be discussed. So if he has the last word and it's not resolved in your heart, then and it's over a 5, make sure you come back to that conversation at some point in time if it's not resolved. But him having the last word in the moment is a form of respect that I don't know that many of us have seen demonstrated by the women in our lives. I know I didn't look. Okay, you gonna take the challenge, Stacy? Hey, hats off to you. I want to know how it goes. Like, let me know. You gonna do your challenge? LaShonda, you got this. Their thought process it's slower because of they are focusing on, it's because of their level of focus. So whenever you are focused, you have to slow down when you focus. Distraction distraction moves quickly because no focus is required. And a lot of times the way that we process information, ladies, we are scattered, we're all over the place. And that's why it seems like their process is slower, but they're focusing. They're focusing. And that's their strength. And a lot of times we don't respect it. Hey, peace and blessings, Brother Walt. We was talking about you behind your back. We was talking about you behind your back, Brother Walt. Yeah, it is hard to be in a conversation, especially this, right? So I was visiting with a family member this weekend, and she said something that was absolutely hilarious because her daughter was making observations about this conversation that she was having in her love life with her partner. And my family member made the comment, the argument would be over if he would just admit that I'm right. Like, she has that competitive, combative spirit. And she fights for fun. And a lot of women don't understand that wears on men. And going back to the comment, I think it was Team Truth, you had a comment about men just acquiescing. That combativeness over time, a brother gets tired. Brother just want his peace. And if that means, okay, you want to let go, yeah, whatever. Men will, yeah, whatever you to get you to be quiet and they can get back to their peace so that they can get back to enjoying their nothing box. And so acquiescing in those situations, especially if a woman is like my family member that I'm describing to you, the argument will be over if he would just admit that I'm always right. So, ladies, even if you know you're right, even if your way of looking at things is the best way, and he's not agreeing in the moment, letting him have the last word gives him that space to think about what you were saying and to consider what you were saying, because men are going to reason things out. Most men are going to reason things out. And when they get quiet, they tend to do a better job than we do of separating their feelings from the facts. And that's what they're doing when they're getting quiet and when they want peace. Some people, both men and women, I have seen this, just love to have, yes, the drama, like, I've seen this in a married couple. I see they both live for the arguments. Some people, that's what they look. That's their way of sparring or feeling intellectually stimulated or what have you. If that floats your boat, then so be it. More often than not, what I witness from my little corner of the world here at the Law for Love, men wear out under that level of combativeness from women. They check out, they zone out, they find them a happy place, or they find them something to distract them from the misery of not feeling heard by their wives. And Men don't often articulate this out loud, but they want to feel heard as much as we want to feel heard. And a lot of times, the fight for the last word is making sure that you heard me. But I promise you, ladies, because of what I've witnessed in my own turnaround and how much more heard I feel now, I am more heard in my marriage by yielding the last word. More often than ever before in our marriage, my husband comes back to me and says, I considered what you said and you had a point. He never did it before when I fought for the last word. The rooftop. Yes, that rooftop ministry is real, y'all. Look, the proverb, look, the law says, y'all know what I think about the Proverbs. The Proverbs is a restatement of the law. The Most High built our brothers to want peace inside of their house. And if there is no peace inside of the house, it is better for that man to be on the rooftop in the middle of the hurricane. Because he's not finding peace in his house. And we are so influential in that peace being with that man. And one of the most powerful, if not the top three of what I've learned from navigating people through divorce, reflecting on my own behavior and how I show up in my marriage. One of the top three changes that I've implemented in my relationship in terms of the benefit and the fruit that I've received back from swallowing my pride and zipping my lip and sometimes biting my tongue to the point of bleeding has been allowing my husband to have the last word, even when I feel that he's dead wrong. So I say that to you, Sister Stacey. Yes, it is hard. And it is a part of my life's practice and how I show up in my marriage now. But this has yielded so much fruit in me feeling heard and feeling that my point was taken into consideration when we're not agreeing. So that's a conversation for tonight. Again, questions for you to reflect on, questions for you to consider ways that you can show up differently. Again, yes, I am putting a lot of pressure on wives here, because I do think we score the most points with our men when we yield the last word, and they feel more respected and they feel drawn to us when they feel respected. So again, we are Law for Love, the most special place in the legal system in Atlanta. And just to answer the question, what is a family strategy call? So we offer family strategy calls. And what we do is an hour of just listening to whatever is happening in the family. Sometimes as someone who's considering a divorce, sometimes as someone who has been in some conflict that they haven't been able to resolve with their loved one. They want to figure out a way to rebuild trust, connection, and moving forward with each other. Well, you know what? We talk about it and listen to you with the gift of compassion. And at the end of that call, provide you with a clear strategy to how to move forward from a place where you might have been feeling unstuck, maybe because the conflict is caused by power struggles, like we talked about tonight with the last word, or maybe complacency in your marriage, some kind of miscommunication, and so much more. A host of marital issues that I've seen time after time again in my practice, and now am working to reverse engineer divorce to prevent it, right? So I think there was a comment that came in and I missed. Hey, Princess. Yeah, thank you for joining for the discussion. This one here it's a big one. I think we score a lot of points when the brothers, when we let them have the last word. I appreciate you too, Sister LaShonda. Thank you for for the value that you added to the conversation tonight. And I am so excited, y'all, to hear about how your challenge went. Next week, when we reconnect, I want to know. I want to know. And look, I'm always available offline for those of you who know, uh, give me the opportunity to celebrate you and how you overcome, your need to triumph and get that last word. I'd love to celebrate you and how it makes the difference in your relationship. And so with that, thank you all. Love you all as always. And I look forward to doing this. He say, she say next week. Same time, same place.